Well, hello, folks. It's Ned from Rock 108, hanging out here once again in the second bedroom for another episode of Ned's Coffee and Quarantine. But we're a little bit later in today. Normally, I do these in the morning, but Lou is a nighttime guy in most cases. So we're hanging out nighttime, and instead of coffee, so I don't stay up all night, I dug into my fridge and I found this Pinot Grigio. It's my wife's. That's all I know. I'm not a wine guy, but we're going to find out today if I am. So
Personally, I'm just sipping cough syrup, just enough to take the edge off, and
there
I'll
you go. Perfect,
I'll
man.
be fine.
A little bit of Dayquil for you for the day. So, of course, I'm the afternoon guy on Rock 108, but at nighttime, you hear a wonderful show called Hard Drive XL with Lou Brutus. And before I sign off for the night, I always say, our man Lou is in next. Check him out, Hard Drive XL. And now I've been saying radio guy and author Lou Brutus. And I've got Lou Brutus, two radio guys here on the Coffee and Quarantine. What's up, man?
I'm excited to be on. Thank you for having me on. First, I hope that you and yours and everybody there is doing okay under the circumstances. I know of late, Iowa has been a pretty tough spot to be. Even though at night I prattle on about my rock and roll nonsense, please know that I'm thinking of everybody. I'm just trying to provide musical and comic relief. I think that's my job in this. I think that's generally my job in life. And that's what the book grew out of. But I hope I'm providing a bit of companionship and a break from all of the horrible stuff. You don't need horrible stuff from me. There's already plenty of horrible stuff. I'm trying to get people non-horrible.
Right. I mean, if you want some horrible stuff, just go on the internet and look at some of your friends' shared posts. It's like, oh God, you just question some of them sometimes.
Yeah, I can't take too much more of that. I just breeze in, post, hey, getting my book, Sonic Warrior. Here's a picture of my dog, Darla. See you tomorrow, everybody. It's just, I can't take it,
Yeah, it's getting kind of nuts. I mean, if people do follow you on Facebook and Instagram and all of them, obviously Sonic Warrior is like the big thing right now. Is you're really pushing hard. And unfortunately, right when the coronavirus pandemic hit, your book was coming out at the same time. And it's like, and you're having book stops and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden that had to go completely virtual.
Yeah, and it's been both a blessing and a curse, as they say. It was surreal, though. Just as things were starting to go into lockdown around the country, I had 1,000 books I had to autograph. So my house was filled with cardboard boxes filled with books with my big ugly mug, which you can see behind me on the cover. And I thought, you'll frighten the children, Ned. Stop that. But in the middle of all this like nightmarish Twilight Zone Black Mirror stuff, I'm autographing these books, wondering, how the hell they're going to get to anybody. And I managed to get them to my publisher in LA. These were all of the pre-sale books. That needed to be autographed, and people can get the book, from bookstores or from Barnes and Noble or from Amazon. But I had to get these things autographed, and then the FedEx guy had to get them to LA, and they had to ship from LA. But again, if this is the biggest problem that I have in the middle of all this stuff, I'll consider myself a really lucky human being. And when I say blessing and a curse, I just thought, well, this has got to be the crappiest time to ever come out with a book. I'm like, no one's going to pay attention to my stupid little rock and roll book coming out. And then a number of friends in the media and a lot of rock star friends started to point out, whoa, wait a minute. This is a perfect time for your book to come out. Dude, your book's not about politics. It's funny. It's insightful about rock and roll. People need a break, and they can order it. It can come right to their door. People are looking for something to read. And I mean, there's no way I'll ever know, but I think that's probably one of the reasons the sales have been so strong. And I've been topping a lot of these new book charts just because the book, it's goofy and it's fun and it's rock and roll. And I and I hear I've heard the feedback now from hundreds of people. It's helped keep them sane while they're in lockdown and giving them a break from all the news. Cause listen, you have to stay informed and you have to know what's going on. But if you ingest the news 24/7, like it could kill you. Like it's not good for you. You need a break. And for a lot of people, it's been my book Sonic Warriors. So yeah, again, back to the original point, it's been a curse in some respects, but a blessing in others.
That's so cool, man. I mean, people ask me like, they ask me personally, like, what's your goal in radio? And honestly, I use you as an example in plenty of times because even like not even when I started in radio, maybe like 5 years ago or something like that, I'm like, man, I would love to chronicle, all the weird stuff that's happened to me in radio because I mean, hell, think about it. This is, if you go through this book, there's some of the chapters, like for example, the time a band of musical superheroes dressed me up as a lobster, then beat me up in front of 1,000 people. It's like, well, that could only happen in the industry that is music and the random people that you meet in this industry.
Yeah, that chapter, and it's not one I mention too often because it's not a band that I traffic in on the air too much, but they're one of the most creative and funny bands that I've ever encountered. That's a chapter about a group called the Aquabats. And they started as like a ska punk band. What's his name? The drummer from Blink-182.
Travis Barker, yeah.
Travis Barker started as the drummer for the Aquabats. You hear the original Fury of the Aquabats album, that's him playing, and they're impossible drum parts. But the Aquabats sort of dress like surfing superheroes with masks, and it's totally goofy and fun, but it's G-rated. It's so weird you don't notice that there's no cussing, there's no sex, there's like fall in love with the girl next door and want to kiss her and hold her hand. But it's so goofy and weird you don't notice. Anyway, they often have costume villains on stage, and I've known them for a long time, and for this one show in Washington, D.C., they invited me to come up as the Rock Lobster, and I thought, well, that sounds like fun. What do I have to do? And they said, well, we're just going to put you in a lobster outfit, and you'll come on stage, you'll battle the band with your claws. And I thought that sounded pretty easy. I got on stage, and they beat the crap out. I mean, they were just wailing on my ass. I tried to get off stage, and they literally dragged me back again. I thought I was going to walk away from it with a concussion. But again, the book is just filled with all these weird stories. And I know that you either have or will eventually have a great book in you too, Ned, because any of us who do this for a living have weird things happen. Like,
really?
But most of the time it's business as usual. And I point that out everywhere in the book, that these chapters are sort of the aberrations, because usually when you go backstage, it's bored tour managers and they scream in their phones and they want to get the rock and roll show on. But if you do this like for decades and decades, like I have, you tend to see weird things, and you've done enough of it that you've seen a lot of weird crap happen. And eventually it adds up, in this case to a book for me, but I have enough. I've already put together the chapter titles for a second volume. I could probably do a third one, but I'd rather do, maybe after this one more really, really good one, like as good as this. And then I want to do a book of my memorabilia, because of, I've kept everything from the 3,000 plus music events that I've attended through the years, and got some other book ideas. But it's funny that you mentioned that Aquabats chapter. Not a lot of people mention it, although I think it's one of the funnier chapters in the whole book. I hope so anyway.
Well, just the title of the chapter alone, it just drags you into it. And it was kind of reminding me of like the title of Friends episodes, the one with, or the this, that. I'm just like, oh yeah, it's kind of like, little stories in each one of the chapters that, again, someone that goes to an office or works in a warehouse, something like that, are probably never going to witness or kind of be part of this kind of thing. And that's what's so cool about seeing someone that you listen to every day on, say, Hard Drive XL or Rock 108 or whatever it may be, and you get to kind of live through those stories.
Yeah, it's I think that's one of the reasons why the audiobook version has done real good too, which it's me narrating all the stories, and it clocks in at over 7 hours. And the folks I worked with, a company called Duart Media, who are in New York City, and listen, they have one floor that's just audiobooks, and studios filled with men and women like myself, narrating books. But the other floors, they're doing stuff for feature films. There's Oscars down in the lobby. I walked in there the first day. I'm like, what the hell am I doing in this joint?
Oscars? What?
Yeah. But Yeah, it sort of lends itself to that thing. And one of the, even going back to when I was sending out some sample chapters to some friends, some author buddies,
Mhm.
to check out and just go, hey, does the tone of this sound good? Am I on the right track for this book? And every one of them said, oh, it sounds like you telling me the story. I can hear your voice in my head. And that was exactly what I'm going for. Because, Ned, as you know, whenever radio rats, music miscreants like ourselves get together,
Mhm.
we all trade what I call rock and roll war stories. And,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
because I've been doing this for so long, I have a lot of war stories. So they added up into, hopefully into a good book. There was enough of them. So, yeah, it kind of all grew out of that, just from telling all these stories to people.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, every single time yeah, I know you've been asked this a billion times, and that is, what's your favorite interview? Who is your favorite rock star that you met? And after a while, you've done so many of them that you're just like, I have no idea.
Yeah, and I've been getting it because I've been doing so much press for the book lately, including, like, we're not even marketing the book in Europe, but I'm getting press calls from over there too, that's good. Maybe I can get a movie deal out of this too, and just kick back.
That's
Maybe
a
I won't even have to
possibility.
work the 5 hours a day that I do.
Yeah, mix it up.
Going to concerts is too hard. Um,
Oh,
but
geez.
yeah, it's just weird the way it's all worked out. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
at the end of a long day.
No, that hey, I don't doubt. That's why you should have grabbed, maybe some wine or something like that, or maybe some
No,
nice
that's all I
mineral
need. I'd
water.
pass out at that point. I barely drink anymore, and I mention this on the air all the time.
Hmm.
I drink essentially black coffee, club soda,
Yeah.
and water. Now and then I'll have ginger beer, like actual ginger beer that's
Mm.
got like the heavy ginger in it. Not ginger ale, ginger beer. And alcohol very, very infrequently. I used to be really good at it. Like, I could take a highball glass like this big, filled with Jack Daniels, and just go 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 go
And
go go,
down the hatch it
and
goes.
down the hatch. But that's not a really good talent to have.
Yeah, that could get
Although
you in a lot
although
of trouble.
it does lead into some awesome chapters if you ever write a book.
Yeah,
So
that's how the
because
stories
of
come
that book,
together. Even as a 32-year-old, I'm same thing, man. Like nowadays when I go to concerts, like I used to be that guy that would want to be up front, we got to be in the pit, got to do this. And now because I try to be Mr. Radio guy. I'm like, ooh, what's a cool picture I could get? Or, ooh, maybe I could get that interview in the back or something like that. So I always bring a friend with me to like Rock USA, Sonic Temple, whatever it may be.
Right.
And they're always the guy that's like, we got to get up front. And I'm like, I'm good, man. I appreciate that. And just like, I remember I got into a mosh pit, like a friend, we were at a local show. And he's like, we got to go moshing, Ned. I'm like, no, I'm all right. And then he pulled me in. And after I was done, all of my shoulders hurt. I'm like, God, something's wrong here. I used to be able to do this every day. What happened?
Yeah, I gave up on, well, usually I'm photographing when I go to shows now too. So I've got like 80 pounds of gear around my neck, and that's a good
Yeah.
workout. But I stopped with the pits a while back just because it's a young man's game. And I used to be really good at it. And the last time I got in a pit was at a Slipknot show. And
Oh, God.
these kids saw me coming. They're like, yeah, check out this guy. And they just hammered my ass.
Boom. Right in the face.
Finally, a buddy of mine, actually a guy from Iowa, an old friend of Corey Taylor's, Denny Harvey.
Mhm.
He saw the kids like essentially just tossing me up like a cork, and they wouldn't let me back down. And Denny grabbed me by the ankle and hauled me back in. That was the same night. That was the closing night of the first full Slipknot tour for the debut album. It was
Wow.
at the Electric Factory in Philadelphia. That night, I drank so much, I tried to stage dive from a third-story balcony, and somebody caught me by the belt loop and held me so I didn't plunge to my death. And that's why Lou doesn't drink so much anymore.
I feel like that could be a potential chapter of the book of like the time I tried to become Superman at a Slipknot show.
Yeah, that would probably fit. But
Maybe.
again, I was starting to say before, I've got enough chapters already for a solid second book.
Mhm.
And like the book title, the full book title, of course, Sonic Warrior, My Life as a Rock and Roll Reprobate, Tales of Sex, Drugs, and Vomiting at Inopportune Moments. Many of the chapters have long, involved titles, which you touched on before.
Mhm.
Two of the chapters, off the top of my head, I can mention that would be in a second book include The Time Eddie Van Halen Named a Band After Me, which is about a charity all-star group Eddie Van Halen put together that he named after me to
Okay.
thank me for sticking around to support it and host the show. The other one has a longer, more involved title. And I don't know why I didn't put this in the first book. I just forgot to write the chapter and couldn't get it in time for the deadline. The chapter is entitled, The Time I Turned Down a Private Lunch with Pope John Paul II to Spend Time with Ozzy Osbourne. And I swear to God in heaven, it's a true story.
Worth it? I feel, or should we wait
Yeah,
to the chapter?
I thought I was going to get another chance to go hang out with Pope John Paul II. This was via my cousin. I've mentioned him on the air a couple of times. My cousin is a doctor, and he makes insane dough. And he's a really great guy, and he's been one of my best friends since we were little kids.
Yeah.
Anyway, he is plugged in around the world at the highest levels that exist. And for years, he was friends with the Vatican banker. And he called me up once, and he used to go just stay at the Vatican.
Mhm.
He calls me up once and says, Lou, it's Tommy. I got a surprise for you. Next weekend, I'm flying you to Rome. We are going to have a private lunch with Pope John Paul II. And I'm like, Tommy, I got to be in Dallas with Ozzy Osbourne next week. I can't go to meet the Pope. And he's like, you can't turn down the Pope for Ozzy. You'll go to hell. And I'm like, listen, I'd rather go to hell than have Sharon Osbourne kick my ass.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to Dallas, and I always thought my cousin would be able to come through again for me for the Pope, but I never had the opportunity again. And I'd have loved to have met the man.
See, now I'm disappointed because I was in Italy actually in early February. I went to Rome for a big old trip. Turns out I could have had a small hookup with a lunch with the Pope.
See, well, Pope John Paul II long gone, but
That's true. Yeah.
When I make it to Italy, I'm going to see if my cousin can hook something up. The number one place I've always wanted to see in my life that I've never been is Florence in the north of Italy, which is the city that saved Western civilization. But they've had it pretty hard through the virus, so I think it's going to be a while before things free up there. But even for as bad as things are, it's going to get better. We'll figure this out, and we'll be seeing concerts again. I just hope it's sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of those bands like Godsmack, Rage Against the Machine, they were planning, big tours for 2020, and I think for the best, obviously, but it's a bummer that all of them are getting postponed to 2021. But on the bright side of all of that, 2021 is going to be an absolute music year. I mean, everyone's going to be so wanting to get out, wanting to go and do things. The festivals will be returning, we believe. And it's just like, I think 2021 is going to be nuts.
Well, not only that, but all of these bands who were pent up and locked up for months, who had nothing to do but write songs, are going to be releasing these incredible records. Now, of course, 90% of them are going to include the lyrics staring at these four walls. But other than that, it should be a really good music year.
Yeah, I'm excited. I was obviously getting bummed out because you and I are both very much live music fans, love seeing bands live, and of course taking advantage of any kind of radio world we can get involved with it. One of the ones I was hoping to go to this year was Rock USA, Slipknot performing, Rob Zombie, Limp Bizkit, all those kind of bands from that early 2Ks, and seeing Sonic Temple unfortunately get taken the dump because of the whole coronavirus thing. And you go to that, I think, every year, don't you? It was once Rock on the Range, obviously, but now obviously
Sonic
Temple.
So Sonic Temple is gone for this year, and this will be the first year I haven't gone since they started it up. I think I'm the only media person who's covered every single one between Sonic Temple last year and all of the previous Rock on the Ranges. At least one story in the book, one chapter in the book takes place at Rock on the Range. It's the chapter entitled The Time I Learned the Horrible Truth About Heavy Metal Feet. And it's about getting an Airborne's tour van. And tour vans they're the worst smelling thing in rock and roll because, it just smells like feet.
It does.
So
Really
I got in
does.
the van and started to choke and fell out of the van gasping for air and chipped my tooth. And it was one of the brothers from the band said, oh, look at you, Brutus. You'll never survive in a band, mate. Ah, ha, 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 ha. He was immune to the smell. He had bad feet smell antibodies,
Of course.
So
He's so used to it at this point.
This virus thing. So you need, if you're going to travel with a rock and roll band in the van, you need the special foot odor antibodies, which I just didn't have. Let me see if I can find, while you speak, I'm going to try and find the illustration for that chapter too.
Now I'm curious. Now, I feel like tour buses should be sponsored by like Dr. Scholl's or Gold Bond or something like that. Ah, yeah, there it is.
There we go.
Which, speaking of, I love those illustrations. I don't know if this is a consideration, but have you ever thought of maybe turning or some of the chapters into like a graphic novel or something like that?
Yeah, we've spoken about that. There's been some talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
There's some other graphic novel stuff that I've looked at doing as well. And the artist who did the illustrations for the book, anybody who's followed me for any length of time is familiar with the man's work, Alan McBain, and he's out of the Valley Forge, Pennsylvania area. And he and I have been working together on stuff late 80s, early 90s.
All right.
We've known each other for decades, and he's a rocker. He's older than me, big Who fan. But we've worked on a gazillion projects together. He also does my Christmas cards. I do sort of these pseudo rock and rolly or cinematic Christmas cards every year.
Yeah, those are always cool, man. Well. I love getting those.
Yeah, but the reason that the illustrations came up in the book was we did not have enough photos so everything in the book was represented. Because some of them, they took place so long ago, or they happened under circumstances where to bring out a camera would have been rather awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the lack of consistency really bugged me. And I had sent the publisher, I'm like, hey, here's pictures that I have. And let me see if I can find on my phone. I don't know how well they'll show over the camera thing, but I can show you some of the photos, many of which people have not seen before.
Oh.
That were going to go into the book.
Okay.
So
behind the scenes, Lou Brutus, the diving into the photos.
And it's kind of hard I have tens of thousands of photos on.
Oh yeah, dude. Every single year.
I don't know how well you can see this.
Looks like I can see it pretty good, but obviously if you describe it's a little better.
Well, there's a chapter in the book entitled "The Time Our Tour Bus Ran Over a Guy on the New Jersey Turnpike." And I was traveling with Stone Sour, and we clipped a guy on the New Jersey Turnpike, and he turned out to physically be okay. He had gone a little crazy.
Yeah, there's a chapter about this too, isn't there? There's like a
yeah. There's a chapter and illustration. But these are Jim Root's pictures that he took while we were blocking the entire southbound New Jersey Turnpike.
Oh my god!
I didn't have the semblance of mind to pull out my cameras. I don't know why. I wish I had.
Yeah.
But when it came time to put the book together, I reached out to Jim and said, "Hey, I think you have photos from that thing. Would you mind if I put them in the book if we can use them?" And he sent them over to me like literally in a few seconds. So the only other picture I have on here that I can show you, well, the chapter where I'm chasing Corey Taylor's kind of buck naked.
Yeah.
I have the photos from the photographer who was in the pit.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to cover it up because it's really obscene.
I was about to say, if like I see Corey's D, man, I'm okay.
Yeah. There we go.
That's where it would be.
Yeah. Here we go. Yeah, there we go.
Oh my gosh.
It's just. But I'll say one other thing. There's a chapter on Stevie Nicks.
Oh yeah.
It actually covers decades. She's a really and I'm no big friend of Stevie Nicks. I've just interviewed her and stuff, but she's an awesome lady. That is the I don't know if you can see
that one's pretty hard. Yeah
that one's too tough. But anyway, she had done she decorated the entire tambourine. She took 10 or 15 minutes to decorate it for a family member, and she's a great lady. And that's one of the things I was happy about with the book, with the publisher I found, because I talked to several other publishers before that, And a number of them were interested in the book, but they said, well, we don't want stories on bands that aren't heavy metal. We only want heavy metal stories. And I'm like,
Really?
well, some of my best stories, they deal with classic rock bands or hard rock bands. It's not all, and I just thought that's not the book I want to do. I'd rather do one that covers my whole life and career. So,
Yeah.
luckily I was able to find, a good publisher in Rare Bird Lit of Los Angeles,
Mm-hmm.
who were going to take the book as I wanted to write it. Another chapter that might show up in the next book is about being shooed away backstage at a Frank Sinatra show by guys with Uzis. Because Frank's guys, they weren't only packing, they were packing automatics.
I was about to say, I'm like the crooner, old Blue Eyes himself. Actually, you know what? That's actually not that surprising.
Yeah,
Really not that surprising.
Read up on Frank Sinatra a little bit. There's, there's a bit of a history there. But I saw Sinatra 3 times. 2 shows were invite-only shows, the Golden Nugget Casino in Atlantic City.
Mm-hmm.
One of those, he had Liza Minnelli with him opening, and they duetted together. And that was one of that was one of the coolest shows in my life. The second time I saw him there, it was just Frank, but he did what's maybe my favorite song of all time, That's Life. And I saw him a 3rd time at the Spectrum in Philadelphia with Steve and Edie Gourmet opening up. But that to me, when people ask what kind of music do you like, I just go, well, I like good music.
Yeah, I like everything, man.
It's not just I like hard stuff or heavy stuff. I like anything that's good. So, I'll listen to Frank Sinatra or the Ink Spots 1 minute, and then I'll listen to, Slayer or Motorhead or Slipknot the next minute. And then the next minute after that, I might listen to Frank Zappa or Lady Gaga. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just, I like all stuff,
Right. And that's the same thing. A lot of, we're obviously dubbed as the rockers, and I've always been that one person that's always been like, be yourself and don't let anyone else judge you. If you go through my iPod 1 minute, you'll see like the Backstreet Boys. And then after that, you're going to hear Pantera mixed with Slayer, and then show tunes from like Disney plays. I don't know. It just depends on what the hell I'm in the mood for that day. Could be anything.
Yeah, variety is the spice of life, and musical variety just makes it go beyond that. And, it's one of the reasons why the book has a chapter on my adventures with Frank Zappa, and one with Hunter S. Thompson, and Slipknot, and Stone Sour, and Black Sabbath, and, everybody else in between. It's a big, interesting music world. And again, I've been around it for so long that,
am I losing you?
And just one thing I want people to understand is, they're not the types of stories where I'm talking crap about other people. I certainly saw enough that if I wanted to write a tell-all book, I could, but I don't want to be an asshole. So, that's why I wrote the book I did, which is funny and goofy and gives you behind the scenes at rock and roll, but without ruining anybody else's life.
Yeah, that's one thing that I always like to put out about my personality on air. We all have our own little personalities that we have. Like, I'm the video game nerd guy on Rock 108. I've always loved movies and Star Wars and whatever it may be. And that's that kind of person I am. And because of that, I'm always the happy-go-lucky guy. Like, it's really hard for me to talk shit, be angry, or try to find some way to ruin someone's day. I just can't do that. That's not what I do. And that's how I get that same feeling out of this book. Like, yeah, you could be the Mr. Gotcha journalism guy or whatever it may be, but that's just not you. That's not your personality.
Yeah, there's something my dad told me years ago, and it didn't really sink in until much later. I wish I'd figured it out earlier, but he said to me one day, son, pick up the trumpet, never the hammer. I'm like, gosh, Dad, what do you mean?
Gee.
And he said, well, if you're going to open your mouth about another person, trumpet the good stuff about them. Don't hammer them with the bad. He said, no good will come from it. You'll sound like an idiot, and people won't like you. He said, if you got something bad to say, don't say it. If you're going to talk about another person, trumpet the good things about them, and you'll have a happier life. So.
Yeah, and I'm one of those guys too that dwells. Like, if I do something that I know like angered someone like on accident, it wasn't intentional, I will dwell on it for the whole day, and I'll be like, oh, I can't believe I did that, and I'll just like rattle my brain like crazy, and I hate that feeling so much. Ugh.
Yeah, I have the same problem. It's just You know, I hate disappointing others and I hate disappointing myself. I mean, listen, we all have weak spots and sometimes I'm an asshole. Well, some people tell you I'm an asshole all the time, but you know, for the most part, I'm not trying to be an asshole,
Hmm.
but sometimes I am. But for the most part, I just try and steer clear of that. And I hope it shows in the show, and I certainly hope it shows, you know, in the tone and the vibe of Sonic Warrior.
Absolutely, man. So getting started, and obviously, are you? Because you wrote a book, damn it, and which is already one of the most coolest thing ever. To get you prepped, did you read any like autobiographies by like other rockers or anyone to kind of get you into that mindset?
Actually, no. That's a great question, but no. When I sat down to really write the book, and I had a couple, you know, false starts prior to that, but when I sat down in earnest to write the book, I thought, what kind of book do I want to write? And obviously, I wanted it to be behind the scenes
Mhm.
and inform people about what it's like, but I wanted it to be funny and fun, but not hurtful. The other thing was the sort of voice of the book, and I wanted the book to essentially sound like me if I was standing with somebody at the bar after covering a festival telling the story, because that's literally what the book grew out of. It's just
Yeah.
all of these stories that I've told a bazillion times to industry friends and rock star friends, which is one of the reasons why so many, you know, the reason the book came to be was so many friends were busting my ass for so many years going, you got to write the book. You got to write the book.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
Corey Taylor, God bless him, was one of the people who stayed on me the most because he wanted to read the stories. So,
Mhm.
you know, he encouraged me through the years and said he would write the foreword, and that of course was a, you know, a big plus for the book.
Yeah, that was cool.
So yeah, but that's why when I wrote down to write it, I just basically thought of how I tell the story and wrote it out, and then I would do another pass to add in sort of verbal bridges that I wouldn't say. So you're
Mhm.
describing everything, and you know, it became more of a book form from there. But it's all based in how I would tell the story. So yeah, there wasn't really, and I wouldn't have wanted to base it on anybody else's style. Like I just wanted it. I wanted it to sound like me. When people read it, I want them to. When people read it, I want them to hear my voice.
Yeah, that's ultimately what they want. If they're buying a Lou Brutus
Yeah,
book, they
yeah,
want to be, and that's one thing when it comes to like, because I love reading autobiographies, but I'm not a fan of reading biographies because it's written by someone else about someone else's life. It doesn't feel as personal, essentially. Like I have this one about Mel Brooks over there. Mel Brooks didn't write it. It was someone else. It's called It's Good to Be the King. I got through about maybe, I don't know, about a good 5 chapters, and it just didn't have that Mel Brooks feel to it. It didn't have
yeah.
his words. And I'm like, I can't get into this book.
Yeah, Mel Brooks, first of all, one of the funniest people to have ever lived.
Oh yeah.
I watched Blazing Saddles again last night, by the way, which I've
Perfect.
seen, you know, 4 or 5 thousand times in my life.
A movie they
But
could never do today, by the way.
oh hell no.
No.
I love to watch that film and try and figure out which lines did Richard Pryor write, which did Gene Wilder write, which did
Mhm.
Mel Brooks write. You know, you can almost deconstruct it. I don't know if there's an extra audio track for that or not with those guys sitting down.
God, I hope so.
Certainly, it would have been after Richard Pryor passed away, but I would love to take part in that. But yeah, I prefer autobiographies to biographies because you never know what kind of slant somebody is putting on. And listen, somebody can
Yeah.
write an autobiography and they can BS their way through the entire thing, I suppose.
True.
But yeah, I never quite trust people writing about somebody else.
Yeah, it just because again, it's not them. It's not
Yeah.
them. They didn't live that. They can try to put it to words, but they just can't experience it. And that's what I kind of get out of Sonic Warrior. Like it was your experience. You wrote what that's in there.
Yeah, yeah. And if anybody looks like a jackass in any of the book, it's me. Like I didn't mind making myself look like a jackass. I'm so good at it, and it happens so often. Um, but again, back to the point about I did not want to make other people look bad. I don't mind making myself look bad because it's
Mhm.
me talking shit about myself, but I didn't want to talk shit about others or you know, take advantage of them or take advantage of the things that I've seen behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You know, when I cover stuff, I keep my mouth shut. It's none of my business.
Mhm.
So, you know, no reason for it to be splashed on the pages of a book. Let
Right.
that be for that artist. whomever they may or may not be.
Mhm.
Let them do that in their own book sometime in the future, you know.
Right. There's something about self-deprecating humor too. Like, God, I'm such a jackass or something like that. It still cracks me up no matter what. I love making fun of myself, be it before I make fun of anyone else.
Yeah, and there are so many things that I mean, you know, part of the title is vomiting at inopportune moments. The two of the main chapters are the first and last ones, and I puke all over the place in each one, and there's puking at some stops in between. So,
Mhm.
you know, that's if you like rock and roll and puking, this is the greatest book that you're ever going to read.
This is what you want. Now, something I did with Wayland, the guys Mitch and Phil from Wayland, wonderful guys, beautiful. Mitch is a huge movie guy. So what I did with him on this coffee and quarantine thing is that I showed him movies and I had him react. I'm going to do the same, not with movies. I'm going to do this with you, but I'm going to do rock autobiographies. And you may have read it or you may not have, but maybe
Oh,
it'll jostle something in your brain of like, oh, I remember this one time kind of thing.
okay.
So this isn't this. He falls under the rock realm of actors. Now, I don't expect you to have anything, but this one's just a one for personal for me. But how about the great Bruce Campbell? Hail to the chin. Anything that you can say about Mr. Bruce?
You know, I don't think I have anything I can give you on Bruce Campbell.
Nothing on Bruce. Okay. All
Yeah,
right. Well,
nothing. All right,
now,
we're off to a rousing start. Let's quickly move on to number two.
yeah. All right. Okay. I'm going to save that one for last because I know that one actually kind of has a small chapter in the book.
Okay.
How about Mr. Good old Nicky Six, The Heroin Diaries?
You know, that book is an incredible piece of work, and it was one of the books. You know, again, like I wanted my own style,
Mm-hmm.
but one thing I realized writing the book was, well, there's no way I'm going to out Nicky Six, or out Keith Richards. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean,
Yes.
Nicky fucking dies in his book, for God's sake. It's like, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
So nuts,
Keith,
man.
Keith Richards' book opens up with, you know, he's busted for heroin down south, a trunk load of heroin, like a car trunk load of heroin. So yeah,
Lord.
there's drugs and stuff in my book, but not like in those. Like the
Yeah.
drugs in my book are like the chapter, the time Snoop Dogg got me so high I drooled in my own lap. So while Nikki and Keith have great books about the massive amounts of drugs they can do,
Mm-hmm.
my chapter is about the tiny portion of drugs that I can handle. But you know, in any of the cases, I hope it leads to good reading. So, but Heroin Diaries from Nicky Six, phenomenal book. He's also he's a super cool guy,
Mm-hmm.
and Motley Crue is a phenomenal band. I'm glad you brought that book up because
Yeah,
it's a great piece of
I
work.
love that one.
Yeah.
Now, this one, I know you've probably talked to these guys a few times. I love them. That's actually my wife's favorite band, and in all honesty, I hear her doing the dishes right now, and she's wearing a corn shirt. So, eyes wide open, Brian Head Welch.
Oh, that's a great book.
Yeah.
You read that and you're just glad that that Head is alive.
Yeah.
And I'm
Right.
not saying that to be snarky. You know, he had some really rough years in there. I think as most of the guys in Corn did. I think I mentioned this on the air the other night. I think everybody in Corn is on the straight and narrow,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is good. They're a phenomenal band. They have had the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, as is covered in Head's book,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very inspiring read. Um, One other thing I love about Corn, and this is a musical thing, they always sound like Corn, but they're always trying to sound like a different version of Corn. They're not trying to, you know, remake Follow the Leader over and
Mm-hmm.
over again. Um, I don't love every Corn album. There are some that I love and some that I like and some that are in between.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that they're always trying to do something different, I think, is one of their hallmarks and one of the reasons why they are such a great band.
Yeah, and that they fall under that realm of like, oh, I remember their older stuff was better. You always hear that from every single fan that's a fan of any band, like Avenged Sevenfold, Slipknot, whatever it may be, and they always say like, well, their older stuff is better. I'm like, Korn, like you just said, has tried to reinvent themselves with
Yeah.
so many different albums. Path of Totality specifically, where it was like this dubstep, electronic type of thing, and then Brian came back into the band and brought in that rock, that metal, that kind of thing. And their most recent album, The Nothing, is a mind. I love The Nothing. It's a fantastic album.
Yeah, and Monkey was posting what I guess are some sneak peeks at the stage production that they're still putting together, because
Yeah.
everybody's in limbo about touring and stuff. But,
Mm.
folks got to soldier ahead on these things, and it looks amazing. And they're such a phenomenal live band. And they're fun to take pictures of. They're one of my favorite bands to shoot.
Yeah.
What else you got? What's the next book?
All the hair. Last but not least, my number one favorite band of all time, and a portion, a chapter of your book that has to do with the one and only Gene Simmons.
Oh, Gene Simmons is, it's funny. We just did a roundtable with Dave from Megadeth and Frank from Anthrax.
Mhm.
And we were going to spend like 30 minutes talking about their projects, the three of us on Zoom. We ended up going a lot longer because we stopped and talked about Kiss for 25 minutes.
Oh, dude.
And, wait, can I show you something? I got to step off camera.
Okay, yes.
Hold on.
So in the meantime, I'll do this thing. I'm hanging out here. Lou Brutus, you can see all those beautiful pictures of his face in the back. And if you didn't know, yes, you can in fact pick up Lou Brutus's book.
Here's what happened. What happened. I'm doing this roundtable with them, and it's Ellefson's turn to speak about to first speak. And again, we're all three of us are Kiss nerds.
Yeah.
And Dave said, "Oh man, my favorite thing that I had as a kid, I had the piano music book for Kiss Destroyer."
Ooh,
and
right.
boy, I wish I still had it. And blah. And I said, "Whoa, wait a minute!" I literally reached over and pulled out my copy of it, which, if you look closely,
signed by Ace.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah. And it's got all the sheet music for all the songs in Destroyer, and there's some Destroyer in a live era photographs.
Oh, hell yeah, man.
Yeah, but Gene Simmons, I point out, well, the chapter is entitled "The Time Gene Simmons Proved to Be the Hottest Bowler in the Land." And it goes into some of my other Kiss adventures and stuff I've done with them through the years, but it centers on a night I took him bowling in Cranston, Rhode Island, outside of Providence. And Gene Simmons is the best bowler on the planet. Everything he threw was a strike, trick shots behind the back, through the legs, closed eyes, two balls at the same time, crisscrossing down the lane over and over again. Finally, he's coming off a strike, and I'm going to throw my shot. I looked at him and I said, "Gene, you're the best bowler I've ever seen. How'd you get so good?" And he looked at me and he said, "Lou, I've been on the road some 30 years. I neither drink nor take drugs. There's nothing else to fucking do out here." And he said, "I don't mean to brag, but I'm also the best darts player you've ever met. And I've seen every major motion picture since 1974. And that, kind of gets you to the heart of what it's like for a touring musician, because people think, "Oh my God, you're on the road. It's so exciting." It's Groundhog Day when you're on the road. And most of the time you're staying in places where there's nothing to do. So what do? You find a bowling alley. There's always a bowling alley around. And so that's how Gene got good at bowling and darts.
That's awesome. And also the fact that you said it's like Groundhog Day. That's why anytime I go on one of these tour buses, I always see the day sheet, and it always says what day it is and what city they're in, because 90% of the time bands have no idea where they are until that day.
There is a reason that, and anybody who's been up front at a show knows this. Most times when you look on the floor in front of the microphones, the name of the city is taped to the floor. And I've heard people call out the wrong city.
Oh yeah,
I was
dude.
seeing Iron Maiden once, and Bruce Dickinson. "Oh, I love Syracuse. Oh, marvelous to be back in Syracuse." Boo!
Where the fuck are we?
I was my last time I was in Iowa. I was there. With Korn and Stone Sour, and Corey went off for like 30 seconds about how fucking great Oregon is.
Oh,
and
no.
Finally,
He's
oh my God,
Iowa.
he turned like purple. He turned. It was a funny moment, and mistakes happen. And at first, everybody booed, and then when he corrected himself, people went crazy. And
Of course.
it turned out to be It turned out to be like the best non-musical moment of the show. So
Just that's I've always wanted to interview Corey. I've never had that opportunity yet, but someday that will come across. But he always just seems like one of the most genuine dudes. Just kind of like, and he's like a nerd like me too. He's a video game, like kind of comic book guy. And I'm
yeah.
just like, him and I could probably chat about stupid shit for like 2 hours.
He, he's a pretty rare human being in both his talent as a singer and a front man. And he does have, make no mistake, he has an incredible voice. The best I ever heard him sing, it was an off night from, I don't remember which tour.
Somewhere.
They were going to be playing in Baltimore the next night. We were in DC and we went to a karaoke bar and he sang Black from Pearl Jam.
Oh, wow.
And it did the do-do-do-do-do-do that I can't really do. He sounded like an angel singing. But he's a phenomenal writer. His audiobooks are great. And he's a super nerd, but he's a genuine guy. I mean, I know a lot of people, but I don't have a lot of friends. And I don't mean that as a knock on me or anybody else. It's just, hard to make friends, but I consider him a friend.
That's awesome, man. And that'd be one of those things. And funny seeing Corey hanging out in a, what do you call it, a karaoke bar singing Black. Like, oh, I just walked in here to get a beer, and here's this freaking lead singer up here just rocking out some Pearl Jam.
Yeah, you just never know what's going to happen. And, I think this week marks the anniversary of Dave Grohl walking into, I think it's the Bluebird Cafe, which is one of the honky-tonk bars on the main drag in Nashville. And he got a hankering, wanted to sing, grabbed an acoustic guitar, played for an hour in front of a bunch of people. I think it was late at night and everybody was drinking, and there's Dave Grohl. Well, there's a Dave Grohl chapter in the book. The time Dave Grohl proved himself the most down-to-earth rock star on the planet. And it's probably, in terms of craziness, the calmest chapter in the whole book, because most of the chapters are wacky or crazy, or there's,
vomit-inducing.
Or vomit-inducing, but the Dave Grohl chapter is just about what a nice guy Dave Grohl is, and he's certainly a very huge star. And again, I don't want anybody to think I'm trying to pass Dave Grohl off as like a friend or I'm an intimate of. I've interviewed him a bunch of times and seen him live a bunch of times, and my interactions with him, he's just been awesome. He's just an awesome guy,
That's why he has his own hashtag, Good Guy Grohl, as they say.
Oh yeah, because he just does cool stuff, that's what makes him Dave Grohl.
Yep, absolutely, man. So, I've been, weirdly enough, according to Facebook, because Facebook remembers everything about your life, I've been in radio personally for 13 years. Now, mind you, I haven't been on air that entire time. Us radio people start off on the low totem pole as an intern, dressing up in the chicken suit, which, yes, I have been in the chicken suit, Lou, just like you dress up as a lobster.
I wore the lobster suit, but that was the Aquabats. I never had to wear the chicken suit.
So I'm kind of curious. I mean, when you got into radio, like your first few days, like what were some of the things that you remember doing in those early radio days for you?
I I hate to say this, but I got incredibly lucky, and I was on my college station. We called it UCLA. University closest to the Lincroft area. It was Brookdale Community College in Lincroft, New Jersey. And they had a great radio station. And while I was going to college to help put myself through school, I was working as a soundman at a theater at the Six Flags Park in New Jersey, Six Flags Great Adventure. And through blind luck with that job, I got an internship at one of the biggest rock stations in history, WMMR in Philadelphia.
Oh, wow.
From the internship, I got hired. So I literally started my career at one of the biggest radio stations in history, and the only one of the original FM rock radio stations in the United States that is still left. They are the last one standing, WMMR in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was 17 and, was getting to interview Pink Floyd and the Grateful Dead. And I just thought, well, of course, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds should be interviewing Pink Floyd. So that's why I never had to wear the chicken suit, luckily.
I started off in promotions, man. I was the guy, like you said, in the chicken suit and doing that kind of
Well,
stuff.
well
And
again,
ugh,
starting as an intern, the first job I had, they were playing vinyl albums still at this point.
oh, that's so
So
cool.
my job was to get the new album covers and put heavy masking tape, like packing tape, on the corners so the corners didn't fray too much.
Right,
And
right.
so I would spend sometimes 3 hours in a row putting tape on the corner of vinyl album covers. But you know what? I was at this huge station and like Van Halen was walking by and I thought, this is the greatest thing in the world. I've made it. It was like costing me $100 a week in gas to travel back and forth. But I'm like, I'm in rock and roll.
Yeah.
Woo! I don't think I was ever happier in my life. It was just, and I got free concert tickets and I got all the albums I wanted. And
that's how they hook you in. That's how they hook you in.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. We don't have any money, but we got plenty of free albums and concert tickets. It's like, like offering
And experience.
Drugs, It's just, I'm in.
Absolutely. Man, I was trying to get on air. I remember a guy named Jerry Terrence. He works at WRIF in Detroit now. Or no, WCSX in Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah.
And he's the guy who gave me
classics. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's the one who gave me a shot years and years ago now. And I remember I wanted to do a heavy metal show. It was called Heavy Metal Hangover with Metalhead Ned, And this was before they were like, well, we want a metal show, but you're too green. We're going to book Full Metal Jackie, and we're going to put her on. And then that's how that worked. But it got me on weekends. It got me on weekends in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And from that point forward, I remember I had to go into work at the cemetery I worked at the time. And then after the cemetery, I had to go work at GameStop. And then after GameStop, I'd go to the radio station at, say, 11 o'clock at night and do work all the way till about 2 a.m. in the morning because I just wanted to be in radio. I didn't care what it took. I'd stop by, get a burrito, head to the radio station.
Yeah. I mean, from my internship, I got hired as a morning show producer. Then a few months into, and I just lucked into that job. Mm-hmm. Then a few months into that, so I could make some extra money because I was making like $150. Like I moved out of my parents' house and to Center City, Philadelphia, for like zero money. Excuse me. And then a few months in, they gave me the overnight shift on Saturday. Now I didn't get to be a DJ. Mm. They had all these pre-recorded shows,
right?
But I would get to run those from the studio. And it was, it like doubled my salary immediately. And then a month or so into that, Sunday morning, and it's like 7 a.m., and we were about to start playing. There was a syndicated Beatles show called Ticket to Ride with Scott and Uni from WFM New York. Anyway, Larry Richmond was the DJ who was supposed to come in when that show ended. And Larry called in and said, hey, Lou, it's Larry. I'm really sick. I don't know if I can make it in. I'll try and be in later. Okay, bye-bye. And I panicked. Yeah. I don't know what the hell to do. If Larry's not here when the show ends, the station's going live. Mm-hmm. So I called the program director. He didn't answer. I called the assistant program director, Joe Bonadonna. Ooh. And I said, Joe, it's Lou. Larry's sick. He's not coming in. What am I going to do? And he said, I don't know. Sounds like you're getting your big break. I'd tape it if I were you. Click, and he hung up on me.
Oh, no.
So I ended up doing like 2 hours on the air, and I taped it, and I played it for the program director the next day. He said, wow, you're really good. Do you want some regular shifts on the weekend? And that's how I made it on the air for the first time professionally. And at that point, between the morning show, 5 mornings a week, 2 late night shifts, Saturday and Sunday night, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, I was spinning records at the Empire Rock Club, which was the club that bands like Cinderella broke out of. So I, at that point, went, I think it was 15 months straight without a day off, working like 100+ hours a week.
That's radio.
That was radio. That's how I got in. And by the way, a quick aside, Full Metal Jackie, whom you mentioned, Jackie Kaiser, who's a great DJ and a management person. She and I are both graduates of Manalapan High School in Englishtown, New Jersey. We attended the same high school.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. I was actually talking with her, I think last week, because she heads up with From Ashes to New, which their new song, by the way, Panic. I know you've heard it.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
oh my gosh, so good. Anyway,
Panic, an
it,
anthem for our times.
it really is, man. And she got me From Ashes to New. I know she does Five Finger Death Punch and Nothing More as well too. So
Yeah.
she's definitely that record label radio person, man. It's just
Well, she was the person who called me up
mm,
because I had been friends with Ivan Moody from his Moto Grader days, and they were one of the first bands, along with Slipknot, that invited me to travel with them. They'd say, "Hey, we saved you a bunk on the bus. Come out as long as you want."
yeah.
And she had contacted me about Five Finger, and I also heard from Ivan, who was really excited. You got to check out this new band; it's going to be huge. And I was like, I'm hopping on the next plane, and I hopped on the next plane to go watch one of the first Five Finger Death Punch gigs, and been thick as thieves with them. And I don't have any of my rings on. At this point, I would hold up my right middle finger and show. I wear that massive gold and diamond Five Finger Death Punch ring, which that's another chapter in the book. What happened with the ring, they made steel ones, and I think you can still buy them online. They have the American capitalist logo on the front,
right.
And then they did gold plated ones, fake gold, not really worth much, and they gave me one of those as a gift. And then I was in Vegas, and I see Zoltan, and he's wearing one, and it's like this big, like a Super Bowl ring, and it's solid gold.
Oh, damn.
And I said, that's the coolest ring I ever saw. I said, can I get one of those? Like, I'll pay for it, but can I get one made? And he said, sure. You call Rick the jeweler in Chicago. Here's his number. Tell him I said it was okay. He'll tell you how much it costs, how much it'll take. So I call the guy, and I tell him I'm calling to order the ring. Zoltan said it was cool. He said, well, it'll take a couple of months to get done, but yeah, send me your ring size. And we had a lot of friends in common, so I end up on the phone with this guy for like half an hour.
Yeah.
I forget to ask how much it is.
Oh,
but
no.
Finally, after half an hour, I'm like, hey, by the way, we got to talk about the ring again. How much is the ring? And he told me.
Oh, no.
I almost had a fucking heart attack. I almost fell over. But by that time, I was so committed, I couldn't tell him I'm not taking the ring.
Right. He's worked on this thing for whatever it may be.
Yeah. So I give him the credit card number, and he said, it'll take, 6 to 8 weeks, whatever he told me it was going to be.
Yeah.
And I forget about it because, I work 7 days a week. I'm busy. I forget about the ring. And a few weeks later, Saturday morning, for once I don't have to travel anywhere, Darla is walking at my feet. I'm going to get my black coffee, and the girl is opening up the mail, and I hear her open something behind me, and then I hear her voice. Who are you buying jewelry for in Chicago?
Oh, no.
And she thought I had a chickie on the side I was buying jewelry for. And I was like, no, honey, no, it's not like that at all. Zoltan from Five Finger Death Punch said I could order one of the rings, and I ordered the ring, and it's Rick the jeweler in Chicago, and it's a Five Finger Death Punch ring, and it's me, I'm not sure. And my life is saved. And then about 4 seconds later, like, she calms down and then goes, how the fuck could you spend that much money on a Five Finger Death Punch ring? So I ended up eating peanut butter for lunch for about 6 months after that.
Yeah, I don't. You know what? Are you gonna tell me how much it was? Is that an okay thing to ask?
I prefer not to say.
Okay. I'm like, is that rude to ask? I'm not sure.
It was thousands and thousands of dollars.
Okay, that's all we gotta know.
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. It's a good thing I only wear jeans and black T-shirts because I couldn't afford nice clothes if I wanted them.
But you got one fancy ass ring, man.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. I to go with you on that one. Ivan, man, that's another guy that Five Finger Death Punch is the band that I have interviewed the most. And actually, the first band I ever did interview was when Chris Cale came into the band for the first time. And it was him and Jeremy Spencer. And then from that point forward, we just kept interviewing each other. Like, Five Fingers coming. Who we getting? Zoltan? All right. Jason Hook? All right. Yeah. I brought Jason to Guitar Center one day. I'm just like, he's like, dude, can you bring me to Guitar Center? I'm like, this band's awesome. And I started developing that same relationship that you have with Ivan of being the friend. And because I started dropping like man, when you were in Motorhead, he's like, oh my God. I'm like, right? And we just started bullshitting. And from that point forward, he's that guy. Every holiday comes around, I'm just like, hey man, it's happy Thanksgiving. And then he sends me like some weird ass picture of a woman bent over. I'm like, what's going on here? What are we?
Yeah, they're to a man. They're all good guys in Five Finger Death Punch, and Chris Cale. I think one of his first custom T-shirts was taken from a photograph I'd done of him at Rockfest in Cadott, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I've interviewed all of them dozens of times and traveled with them, and they're just good guys. And Ivan has had his ups and downs in life. I think that's one of the reasons why. I think he's a good guy. He's overcome a lot. And I know people at times like to take shots at him, but he's a good human being and a great front man. And boy, oh boy, I think 99% of any other people, if they had to go through the shit that guy's gone through, they would have folded up a long, long time ago. So good on Ivan Moody and Chris and Zoltan and everybody in Five Finger.
Yeah, absolutely, man. A band that went through it all and then got through it all too.
Yeah.
It's so cool to see. And it's so cool to see a lot of those bands. Like we were talking about Korn earlier, about how they really went through it all. I mean, even Jonathan Davis most recently losing his wife. It's just like, how do you feel like you can kind of move on forward from that? But those guys just strength through it, and the music brings them out, and their friends are with them, their bandmates are with them, and it's just really inspiring to see that kind of thing.
Yeah, I remember years, because Jonathan had some years where he had some substance problems, and I just remember being really bummed out about it because he obviously was not himself and was not operating at his peak, at least when he was sitting down for interviews. And I just thought, here's this incredibly creative, incredibly smart person, and he's sort of dulling the effect he could have, the good effect he could have on everybody's lives. So I was super happy when he got sober, and he enjoys life so much more now, and he's so much more fun to be around. And I've seen him and his son, playing with remote control cars. They chased me with one once or twice, backstage at shows. It's just again, I'm not telling people how to live or anything, and I certainly had my years where I was like a walking chemistry set.
Right. Yeah.
But I just prefer black coffee and loud music when I need to get wired. So, that's what works for me. So
you find those different external things you find, and I mean, some people, it might be a drink or a drug or something like that. But again, just kind of sitting back and putting, like, what do you call it? Dark Side of the Moon on the fucking turntable, and maybe even having a nice, like, sip of black coffee. For me, I turn on incense. I'm not a pot smoker or anything like that, but I love the smell of incense and playing old school video games. It just relaxes me. I don't know what it is, man.
Yeah, whatever you can find to bring you peace. I mean, I know tons of people, particularly a lot of musician friends, they love smoking weed. I love the smell of it, but I can't smoke the stuff. It just makes me sleepy and paranoid.
Yeah.
But if it works for other people, I say go for it. And certainly I've always said, regardless of how you feel about weed as a recreational drug, if a cancer patient or somebody else with some other debilitating disease says weed or cannabis extract of some kind helps them, they should be able to have all the weed or extract that they want. Like, why would you stop them?
Yeah.
If somebody has cancer and smoking a joint makes them feel good, why would you even care? It's none of your business,
Yeah.
So
it's their choice.
Rant over. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Thank you. Good night.
Well, Lou, we've been chatting for nearly an hour. You and I could probably share stories for like the next 20 hours, honestly. So, and I know in your time zone, it's probably 10 o'clock at this point.
Yeah, it's coming up on that. But I don't even get to bed till 3 or 4. So I'm just kind of starting my day now. But thank you very, very much for having me on to do this. And I very much appreciate being on Rock 108. I get, and I've shared some of this stuff with you. I hear from so many people in Iowa who listen to Rock 108, who are diehards of Hard Drive XL. And it means a lot. It means a lot at any time. To know that you have that sort of connection and sense of companionship with people. but I think it's particularly more acute now with everything going on.
Yeah.
So that means a lot to me to, to those of you who are watching this now in Iowa, that we're able to hang together. And the only other thing I would ask you for is buy my fucking book. Get it now. It's on sale at Amazon. Buy my book. You can also get it on Kindle. You can also get the audiobook, which I read myself. You can get that from Audible or anywhere else that you get audiobooks. But Sonic Warrior, My Life as a Rock and Roll Reprobate, Tales of Sex, Drugs, and Vomiting at Inopportune Moments, with incredible Ned-approved illustrations by the great Alan McBain.
What more can you say, Lou?
I'm such a whore. I'm a whore. That's what we can say. Lou Brutus, whore.
That's why we got into radio. That's why we do it.
I got in for the free stuff. I got in because I could get concert tickets, and I would go to concerts as a kid. I actually started working multiple jobs when I was 12 years old, so I could have money to go to concerts. And I started to notice that the only other person besides the musicians on stage was the DJ from the radio station, and all they did was go, "Here's the band." And I thought, well, shit, even I can do that, So hence my career in radio. It was just to get free concert tickets.
You and I have a very similar outlook on how we got into radio, man. So Lou, before we call it a night, we just did it. We got to do a thing for the blog, basically a still shot, so that way we have like that featured image. So if you want to hold up your book, I'm going to hold up your book with you.
This is like a screenshot of me right now.
Right, and then you can do whatever you want, and then I'll take it. So in 3, 2, 1.